Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Undernight interview series. I am Jushichi, and today I have a special guest, Papa Pesto. Hey, Pesto, how's it going?
I'm doing good, doing good. Thanks for inviting me onto this. This is exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. You're someone that I haven't really gotten a large opportunity to talk with. We chatted a little bit after Climax when we played in Bracket, and I've talked a little bit in the Discord, but I haven't really had the chance to sit down with you. And so we'll go ahead and kind of get into it. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself outside of Undernight? And along those lines, give us a surprising fact about yourself.
So, outside of uni, yeah, I live in Houston, Texas. I guess the surprising fact about myself is I have an identical twin brother. Um, he lives in New York. I live down here, but we used to both live in Houston together. And yeah, same height, same look. You know, two
That,
peas in a pod.
wow, that's pretty amazing. I It's crazy that you were all that he's in New York too. Is that who you stayed with, or who you stay with when you happen to go up, maybe to some events in that area?
Yeah. He lives in Hell's Kitchen, so
Hmm.
some that's like a bit west of Central Park, I think. So yeah, I just when I went to crossover this year, I hopped on the train from his apartment and went over there. It made the trip a lot more affordable, and I got to spend time with him. So yeah, it was another incentive to go to the event this year.
Yeah, that's definitely fun. Uh, what would you consider to be your hobbies outside of Undernight? Do you and your brother have similar hobbies?
Yeah, we actually kind of do. Yeah, we both like to run, so I like to. I train for races and stuff. Um, I run 5Ks, 10Ks, stuff like that. I haven't been able to do it for the past year or so due to my employment situation. I work long hours, so it's hard to find the time and the nutrition to, you know, get good sleep, get to work the next day, and run in the morning and all that. The work-life balance is something I'm still trying to figure out, but yeah, I it's a nice relaxing while also being like a physical and competitive outlet. So I get to like compete against myself, get faster times, and he used to run cross country and stuff in high school, and we're also we just both got into it. I also like to do it, like play other sports like soccer and stuff.
Yeah, things that basically get you on your feet, get your blood pumping, and things like that.
Yeah.
Do you find that when you are more active and you have more time to do that, that kind of transfers back into playing, fighting games and things of that nature? Uh, I asked this basically because like when I was working out more and had more energy, I actually felt like I could play with more clarity.
Hmm.
Uh,
Interesting. Picking up uni has kind of replaced that as a hobby
hmm.
for me. So I'd like to find a better balance between the two hobbies. So I'll get back to you when I'm able to train while also play this game more often.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So that does lead us into our next question. How did you get into Undernight in the first place?
Okay. Yeah. So in the fall of 2019, I watched Evo, and I've been playing fighting games for pretty much my whole life. I come from a big family, and a way that we connect would to play stuff like Tekken or an older Street Fighter game. And throughout high school, I played a lot of Street Fighter 4 and Marvel vs. Capcom 3
Hmm.
with my siblings. So when I went to college, I kind of fell off those hobbies because it's difficult to find people that are into more niche video games like that. But then the pandemic happened in 2020, so I watched Evo in 2019. Pandemic happened. I needed a hobby that cooperated with my newfound indoor lifestyle. So I I bought this game and I bought Skullgirls.
Two very cool games. I don't play Skullgirls that much. I do own it and I gave it a shot. I'm kind of useless at team games, but the community aspect of that has inspired like a lot of how I move within the scene and some of the community outreach that I do. So it's interesting
Hmm.
that you say that.
I also got Grand Blue, which came out around that time in March 2020. But yeah, the game caught my eye in Evo 2019. I watched top eight, like I did with all the other games, and I'd never seen the game before that, and it was super interesting. So whenever the pandemic started, I bought a bundle of fighting games. So Grand Blue, Skullgirls, Street Fighter V, this game, and this is the game that stuck with me the most. I didn't want to go back to Street Fighter V because I was so married to how Street Fighter 4 felt.
Ah, yeah.
I was one of those. I played the game and it didn't feel right.
Yeah, I don't know if you got to the level of like active defense and dealing with crouch check and things like that, but some of the same complaints that I've seen kind of levied at Under Night feel similar to maybe how Street Fighter 4 got things. Don't want to deal with OS defense and powerful defensive tools. I think Street Fighter 4 had more cheap offense, which is weird to say for a game that has like Batista and Carmine in the game, but it kind of felt like you were put in more unfair situations in Street Fighter 4 for me.
I totally agree with you. Absolutely. Akuma Vortex. Oh my god. Like,
Ibiki, Cammy, like
yeah.
all of these characters.
Ibuki Vortex mid screen. You'd get hit by Akuma Roundhouse mid screen, and you could just lose the round off that. Um, but yeah, like you said, the oh, what I really appreciated in Street Fighter 4 was the plethora, like how strong defense was, um, and it was active, which is kind of different to how Uni can be played. Uni can be played, or at least this version of the game can be played quite passively on defense and still
Oh
be pretty
yeah.
successful. But I like to play active defense in this game when I play Uni, and that's how I played in Street Fighter 4, while also having the option to oscillate between a more passive defensive playstyle to throw off your opponent's rhythm. And I really enjoyed that level of interaction on defense in Street Fighter 4, and you can kind of approach defense in a similar way in this game, and it just felt really natural to me from that transition.
Yeah, that was something that I've grown to appreciate and like about Under Night. And it's to my detriment a lot of times when I'm playing other games. Uh, I mean, you've played me. I will sit and
Yeah,
wait on you
yeah,
if I can.
yeah.
To my detriment sometimes, but in other games you really have to be active. And I'm learning as I'm playing Grand Blue um, that you have to know, you have to be very in tune with what your opponent is doing to be
Hmm.
more active on defense. And so Under Night with Akatsuki, I wouldn't say is a inherently defensive character, but because of the nature of his stubby normals, you might have to pause a little more or
Hmm.
make some more committal in turn make some more committal defensive options. But we can maybe elaborate down that rabbit hole a little later. What would you say is the thing that keeps you interested in Under Night?
Um, at least in this current version, I really enjoy how this game feels. Um, the combos, the movements, uh, and it's not only that, my local community is pretty into this game. Not only just the greater state of Texas, but also Houston. The city here has a few players that really enjoy playing the game, and their enthusiasm for the game really makes me want to watch them grow and sustain my level of play along with them, while also hopefully seeing the players that have moved on from this game from the transition of ST to clear come back and enjoy the game with them in the next version. So those are probably two of the main reasons that I really enjoy playing this game.
Yeah, I feel pretty similarly. Texas becoming like at one point the hotbed of North American Undernight was an interesting transition for a while because normally you attribute that to East Coast or West Coast, maybe even sometimes like the Florida area. But
Hmm.
like with Misoma and Luna and Silent and yourself, of course, Knots when he was there, like Texas was like the spot. And so I'm very excited, kind of thinking about players who might be returning, players with renewed interest in the game. I'm so fascinated to see what's going to go on in Texas in
Yeah,
the
the
next
bench
version.
is so deep.
It
There's
is.
so many, like, yeah. So many different, just not even just amazing players, but even just solid players that can give you a run for your money on any given day, and it really keeps it allows you to get a lot of matchup experience, while also you just get to see a huge gamut of player expression and characters and all that, and yeah, like being able to play that wide of a player pool is definitely something that kept me involved in this game for the past couple of years.
for
One of the major
sure.
reasons.
Rollback for me, I'm excited to not, see TexasNet derogatory and instead see TexasNet positive, because a lot of my contemporaries, you, Silent, and everyone, are players that I would like to get more experience against. But with my own network circumstances in the past, I upgraded mine this year. Um, and then how connection wiring goes, it can be difficult in a delay-based environment. But
Hmm.
we'll kind of shift. We can kind of talk along those lines as well in a future state. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. Uh, we have his music playing in the background, although I don't think you can hear it. But who is your main character, and why did you choose them?
So this is actually there's multiple parts to this question. So originally I was a Yuzuru player back when I first picked up the game.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I played her up throughout I want to say the middle of 2021, um, and I from 2020 to 2021 I played this game mostly as, or at least at that point of 2021, I played this game mostly as a hobby, and it was a really fun way to spend my time. And that character has a lot of mechanical depth, and a lot of things to chew into. But I wasn't really, I wasn't really that good at the game for that period of time. I just played this game more as a. I just really enjoyed how the game felt and the combos, and had a lot of fun playing the character. But I was pretty casual up until around that point, and I entered a transition point in my life where I moved to Houston and needed to finish my degree online. So I had even more free time on my hands, uh, and I figured I wanted to commit more time to this game. So
Mm.
I gave it a lot more thought on who I wanted to play. And Yuzu, not only was I not very good with her, but she was too. I think she was giving me issues with my hands.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, the quick inputs, a lot of actions per minute. It really took a toll on my wrists. Even as a casual player, like it was a bit too much for me to want to play that character on a higher level, and I didn't really mesh with the play style. Like I got to see when I gave more focus on who I wanted to play. I analyzed her win conditions more and how to play the character, and the idea of slowly chipping away your opponents, playing for time all the time. It didn't really interest me. I picked a character I wanted to kill people with, and
it's interesting that you
but
say
it was
that,
hard.
both kind of mechanically and as a win objective perspective. I started, seeing the initial trailer for Under Night years and years ago, and
Mhm.
Yuzu and Line both were characters that I was interested in. And then I saw Byakuya, and I was like, he was pretty cool after I lost to my friends a lot. Um, but like coming from the Smash background, uh, primarily, it's like, man, my fingers cannot do this stuff. And
Yeah,
so I went super
yeah.
simple, which leads me to Akatsuki, of course. And then various other things transitioned into my love of the character. So I'm interested to see what made you uh, choose Carmine. I kind of interrupted you, but please continue.
So yeah, like I said, I couldn't. I feel like I couldn't keep up with how quick the actions were. I was used to playing games where delays in your combos were a factor. Um, and in Yuzu's combos, there are delays for sure, but you have to crank out inputs very quickly. And Carmine has a lot of like funkiness and delays and stuff, and that kind of mechanical depth interests me. On top of the negative edge and a lot of other a lot of just interesting mechanical and strategic depth into those mechanics. And uh, I gave a lot of characters a try when I first bought the game. and Carmine was definitely one of them, and it never really meshed with me. But when I got a feel for how the system felt and how the game felt in my hands more, going back to him a year later made a lot more sense to me. And I really, my team in Marvel 3, I mentioned earlier, I played Marvel 3. I played Magneto, so I love the nuances and setting up set play like that, the high-low throw situations, and
Hmm.
you get to play Carmine. Whenever you have your opponent in the corner and you throw wheel, it's pretty much just like your Magneto and you're calling an assist and you're try dashing at them. You know, it's the same thing. So
Yeah,
I felt at home.
it plays out slower, but I know when I've played you and I've played other Carmines in the past, it's like, okay, do you have to worry about triple, double? Like, are they going to kind of delay this? Are they going to go low?
Hmm.
And then you tend to introduce other options that you have to take into your mental stack. So I can tell that you've really put a lot of time and thought into how you're running your offense.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most interesting parts of running a set play character that people don't take into account is if you have like a deep pocket of gimmicks and things that throw at your opponent, you just get to create so much nuance in those interactions that you don't really see on the surface level. Especially with Carmine set play, where I feel like unless you're putting them in a gapless situation, and even in those gapless situations, there's a lot of nuance. You can go high, like you said, you can go low, you can rising JA them afterwards, to fuzzy them. You can. There's just so many different ways to mix up your opponent, and you get to pick up on how your opponent approaches those situations on defense, and it makes those situations way more interactive and way more interesting than they seem on a surface level. That's why when I look at like Hilda's set play, I get way less interested because it really is just you call the gloom, you go high low. Carmine's set play is a lot more fluid and interactive than any other character in the game, I think, and I love playing those situations. So it brings me back.
Yeah, Hilda, I find really fascinating for a different way. I think the way that she can layer the decisions that you have to play around prior to the 50-50 are way more fascinating to me than maybe when she actually hits you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
and then counterplay around that with your tech directions and things like that, guard thrust, which is going to be more prevalent in the next game, and
Hmm.
so on and so forth. There's a lot more to that character that I find interesting. Not to say as a counterbalance to Carmine, but just looking at her by herself, I'm like very fond of that character. Um,
Yeah.
Ironically, but um, we'll move into kind of the B side of this question because you said that you cycled through a lot of characters. Uh, do you have characters that are like dedicated sub characters, and why have you chosen to play them? And do you think you're going to still play these characters in Uni too?
So I think I have only one character that I could call a true that I'm good enough at that character to call a sub, and that'd be Aurier. I also play Hyde and Seth, um, but those two characters are more of just experiments. I think Seth, I think Seth is a ton of fun, and watching, it's like that meme where like Squidward is in the mirror, like watching Patrick and SpongeBob having fun on the sand. I felt like that
Yeah.
when I watched Seth players play. Um, they're just doing a lot of stuff that didn't make a lot of sense to me before I picked up the character, and uh, he's just a ton of fun. Especially when you're not playing an opponent that knows the matchup, you just get to
You get to do whatever you want. It's the
you
open
get to
world.
do. Yeah, exactly. It's a sandbox character, and when you're playing against the person that doesn't know what's going on, and you get to hear their comments about like what's even happening on the screen.
Mhm.
It's so good. Hyde I picked because I think that character is very fundamentally solid,
Yeah.
and I got to picking that character let me see the game from a different perspective. Because coming from Yuzu, don't have an you don't have an anti-tier OS, and then going to Carmine, you do have an anti-tier OS, but his defense functions differently than how Hyde's defense functions, because of all of Hyde's reversal options and different mash out tools. So you just get to experience the game on a different level with that character. But I'm still working on him to get him up to par. Aurier I picked up mainly as a counter pick. Actually, I wanted to play Aurier into Byakuya, um,
Yeah,
Byakuya and Linne.
I feel that. I feel that.
Yeah, I lost to Byakuya too many times, and the matchup felt kind of hopeless towards the end of last year, beginning of this year, when I would just get owned by every Byakuya I'd see. And I picked up Aurier because she can play at that tempo in which she gets to control neutral very, very well against Byakuya and Linne,
Mhm.
um, as well as play very non-committally. That's where I kind of struggled with when I was playing Carmine. Was I was playing too committal
Mhm.
into that matchup. I kind of as you have to um, when you're playing Carmine into Byakuya. But that would always leave me on the back foot, and you'd have to outplay your opponent to a degree that I wasn't able to do consistently. And Aurier kind of simplified that math. You still have to play very carefully and neutral, and the risk reward in that matchup is very skewed in Byakuya's favor due to how much reward he gets on hit
Yep. And
compared to Aurier.
how poor she is kind of defensively, I think, against his the nature of his offense once he gets going.
Yeah, yeah. But being able to have the reins on how neutral interactions, neutral set pieces work out, it made me feel more comfortable in that matchup than versus Carmine, where you do have the reins in your hands, but the cost is too great um, to control him. Um, and Ori Linne I feel like that matchup feels very good, so
Yeah,
I like that matchup a lot.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that because I consider Aurier to be my sub character, and I think you have a better Aurier than I do.
Oh,
Um,
thank you. I think your Ori is very good.
Thank you. I think you've put a lot more time into her than I have put time into Aurier. I've just been playing for a longer time, but I hated. I mean, I still kind of do, but I hated Eltnum. Playing Akka Eltnum in ELNST drove me up the wall. And then, I had Suna and a couple other players in my local region, and I was like, man, sorry, Frozen Core also was my training partner online, so he would be driving me nuts. I couldn't
Hmm.
anti-air him and all this other stuff, so I'm like, I need a different perspective. I need to be able to pick up this character. Like, this character's cheap. Uh,
Yeah.
and then it kind of went back to controlling tempo. Like I've played Miller a lot in Aurier versus Line. I feel very comfortable in that matchup. I feel relatively comfortable against most Eltnums. And even Byakuya to some extent, I was, experimenting a little bit because I came up playing TG and
Hmm.
Sketched and Pearly Fae. This is a deep, deep cut, EL deep cut.
Oh,
Uh,
whoa.
um,
Never
so
even heard
I,
that name before.
yeah, they they're an OG, Midwest OG. Shout outs to you, Pearly Fae, if you happen to see this. But that ability to control the neutral, dictate the terms of engagement, have a relatively easy whiff punish tool. I am in love with her walk,
Hmm.
even though I think back walk in this game um, is weaker than people think that it is. Maybe you have that perspective as someone who also plays the character. But I think the situations where you set up back walk, it's actually further back than you would think to maybe like force things to whiff. But
Yeah.
that's like a whole discussion we can get into. You and I can get into the weeds about that, maybe with Gosu or something someday. But being able to play with a different perspective, with different tools that force you to think differently, force you to slow down. Because you and I essentially play two rushdown characters, different flavors, but rushdown
Yeah, 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 yeah.
characters,
Absolutely,
uh,
absolutely.
helped me put things into perspective. And that started to shine back through with my Akatsuki player expression, which finally, after a bit of time, meanders us back into our next question. What would you say is your mode of player expression? What's your signature thing?
Hmm. I think I play a lot more conservatively with Carmine than a lot of other Carmine players do. Um, I watch like Notes and Spinach play, and they're way more willing to lock down their opponent from full screen. I don't think I don't personally like to play that play style. I like to play more in the mid range and abuse Carmine's really strong 2C, and play footsies around that button, as well as use the threat of DP instead of detonating it in order to lock down my opponent, constantly using the threat of puddles behind my opponent. Um, and yeah, I think more conservatively neutral. I like to play, but whenever I play up close, I throw at least 5 times more than any other Carmine opponent,
You
no Carmine
do.
player. Yeah.
I had a discussion. So sorry, let me dig back in one thing that you said prior and then go in. Um, I talked to Findo. I don't know if you had this same sort of thought that I did, but Carmine getting health back for successfully throwing his opponent, in my mind, like made me think like if you can put in some set pieces, especially with protection from bomb and thing like that,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that gives you slightly more opportunity to play than maybe exhausting everything for the one chance to just kill your opponent. And I remember I think this was Climax. This was before the new venue, so Climax 3 years ago. Uh, we were talking on the way back from breakfast, and like we had a pretty candid discussion about that. So I was curious about your thinking on that.
Yeah, I think that's key, especially in Carmine's most problematic matchups, where excuse me, where his set play isn't as effective.
Hmm.
So when you play into a Byakuya or a Katsuki or Lene,
Yep, characters you
if you
can't
have
fuzzy necessarily.
exactly, they have excellent ways to counterplay your counterplay just by being short and also having strong reversals. Um, so if you have them locked down in the corner, you're not really seeing the fruits of that labor as much. So playing in such a way that you prioritize the timer and forcing them to make a mistake, I think is more effective.
Yep.
Playing Carmine as more of a traditional zoner with Punisher character with his DP and 2C and JC and really strong overall, like his ranges are so powerful and with punishing those characters, but you can't really maul them unless your opponent is unaware of how the character works, which sometimes happens a lot.
Yeah, I honestly find sometimes it to be troublesome dealing with just like 6B versus, is it IC 6B or is it 4B? Like I don't remember the change anymore.
It used to be 4B, now it's increased 6B. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, I like to play with fireballs, so Carmine, you don't really get to do that against him. You kind of have to maul him because of his ability to control the mid range. And you kind of talked about it before about your reticence to use TP to pop those puddles and things of that nature. And I thought about a conversation that I had with my old roommate Silmarion about chaos,
Mm,
where you know that when Ozzy is going to go into you, that's like guaranteed plus frames. Uh, and you can lay him out there to get killed. Like, you know, you do your string hoping that it's going to hit them. But if it doesn't work, like you're just getting Ozzy killed. And so I was thinking back in 2019, 2020, Chaos players need to position themselves closer to the opponent relative to Ozzy. So, and Jake and I talked about this in one of our interviews, where even if you kill Ozzy, he comes back in like 3 seconds. You can
yeah,
start to pressure people and punish people for killing Ozzy. You get to start laying traps and subverting expectations, and I think that that's a lot of what you do with the 623 series.
it's a great way to, once you establish the threat of it within the first round or two, show them in places where you're going to use 623 to lock them down and continue your pressure. You can then use that threat to create more dynamic situations, and while maintaining that resource in your back pocket if you need to lock them down. Um, and I like that play style more than dumping your health to lock them down, to put them in the corner, to set play them to death, which is strong in its own right. It's very strong, but I like the more conservative play style, and it also gives you more chances to play uni because if you play Carmine in that way, where you're constantly using his specials, you run out of health way quicker, and if they escape your pressure and get their one mash, and you will die so fast if you have no health because you've dumped it all on looping pressure as much as you can or locking down neutral. So if you play more conservatively, you're able to use Carmine's high health pool because I think
Yeah, he's
his
up
health
there, tied
is
with Akka, I believe. Akka
yeah
and Gordo, I think, have the same
it
health pool right now.
yeah, and if you're able to leverage throw as well as command grab ender, you're able to just have more bites at the apple, just play the game more. And eventually you'll find your opportunity to put them in the corner and set play them to death if you so choose, but you can also time them out with
Yeah.
command grab ender and throw and regaining health, which is a whole other can of worms that I think is another interesting facet of Carmine gameplay that's underexplored.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I thought about. Like I've jokingly talked to Spinach about this. You know, as we're both Midwest or Midwest adjacent players. Uh, you know, like there's a very notable set of me playing against. Oh my God, I feel so bad. He's actually in Texas right now. He's like a legendary CL player. He top aided at Texas Showdown this year.
Oh,
You know who I'm
Hathara,
Hath.
half,
Hath,
yeah,
my guy. Shout outs to you, Hath.
my
Uh,
guy as well.
where when I play against Carmine, I feel like I'm an idiot. Like I kind of know what's going on, but not really. I'm just like sitting there waiting, like, okay, you're gonna kill yourself. Like I'm looking at your health bar, I'm looking at my health bar, and I'm like, if I win one important interaction here, that flips the entire thing on its head. And I think
hmm
we had kind of spoken about it after the set, where it's like, you know, I was waiting for my opportunity. You took the opportunity to be more aggressive on the situations where I was finally able to start my offense, and that totally took the punch out of what I was trying to do. And when we played, I came away. I was like, okay, I'm not unhappy about this loss. Like, pretty thoroughly in a bad matchup and tactically, like, you outplayed me. You had the objectives that you wanted to play for. And so I was, like, really, really impressed by that. And it's made me think a lot as I've prepared to play you again and things like that. So,
Oh Lord,
yeah.
I
I
think
I always think about the people I lost to.
same it. I'm a competitive person as well. I played sports a lot growing up and I have a lot of siblings, so I've always wanted to win. I don't really seem like it,
Yeah, you're a chill
whenever
kind of
I,
guy, even disposition, it seems.
yeah, and I know when to pick my spots on when to be competitive.
Yep.
And I really enjoy playing this game, so that can overshadow my saltiness, and I don't get salty very often. But I do love to win and think about my losses a lot. But to go back to what you were saying about choosing your spots, I think yeah, that's what Carmine's so good at is if you have more bites at the apple, his mash out options, it's a strong 3BAD option select to counter assaults. He has great ways to his command grab reversal. If you're able to pull it off in the corner, throws them back into the corner and
Yep.
just sets up a whole huge can of worms. So I think prioritizing playing the long game is just an underappreciated way of playing the character because you'll get your opportunity if you play patiently enough with the character. And some people like to play this character and just burn bright but burn short. But I think playing him more conservatively will yield yield better, more consistent results.
Yeah, the slow burn is a good burn too. I think that's one of the things I like the most about Under Night is that uh at the very baseline, up to this point, Uni 2 may be different, it may not. If you understand what you're looking at and what your opponent is trying to do, you have time to pick your spots. You have time to make a decision. Um, you defensively, typically, you have at least 3 bites at the apple to get
Mm-hmm.
out of offense, to reorient what you need to do. It can be brutal in many ways, but it's also very forgiving too. Uh, but we're gonna kind of shift gears a little bit. We've dug into this a lot, and I could keep going for a long time, but I don't want to hold up your time here. we're gonna kind of go into the matchup side of things. What matchup do you feel the most confident in, and why? And then on the flip side, what do you feel most nervous about when you play against a certain character, and why is that?
Um, so I know what character I want to say is the most comfortable, but knowing the players of this character, they're gonna take it personally and get upset. And
Hey, we
it's
can use
Gordo.
that as fuel going into the next version. But Gordo,
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, Gordo. I think Carmen does really well into Gordo, and uh, he's vulnerable to a lot of the mix-ups that he can pull off. And I'm fortunate enough, I'm blessed enough to the strongest Gordo in our region, Eggplant Menace, moved away as I chose to pick up this character, so I've never experienced true hell.
Eggplant's so
Um,
good, man.
yeah,
So talented. Shout out to Eggplant.
he's nasty, and I never had the I think I played him a handful of times before he moved away, so I never got to experience getting shoved in the locker by him. And there are definitely plenty of other strong Gordo players, but I think just how those characters play into each other and all of Carmine's strengths are just he just feels very consistent and strong into Gordo. Now there's just there's so many different micro interactions where it feels like Carmine has the advantage compared to Gordo. Like in the sim mind game, if Carmine lets a jump forward JC or J6B rock, that's a way higher damage call out than a lot of other characters can do in that situation. Um, in neutral, it kind of plays out very in Carmine's favor before and after Vorpal. Even if Gordo has cycle, Carmine's 2C is just so good at going under Gordo force function that it's difficult for him to use that tool.
Yep.
And Carmine has a lot of ways to whiff punish anything Gordo does in neutral with 63 while getting a full convert. So just a lot of different situations where it feels very good.
Yeah, I'm going to be very fascinated to see how the improvement on Gordo's 5C allows him to box Carmine and many other characters that maybe he has some issues with in the neutral game.
I mean, I'm just saying, if you're whiffing that button, you deserve to get whiff punished. I don't know.
Yeah, they did reduce the hurt box though, so he might be able to press it into certain things that he wasn't really able to do before. There are a couple different facets that I'm looking forward to seeing. As an Akatsuki player, I'm not looking forward to that. Playing neutral
Yeah.
against that character, very annoying. I just want to shove him in the corner and shove him into the locker, but
Yeah.
it doesn't always work out like that. But what about the flip side? Character you're particularly uncomfortable playing against?
So there are two characters I think that I'm most uncomfortable with playing. So I think the way Carmine functions, he has a lot of polarizing matchups,
Hmm.
and the two that I struggle with the most, are Byakuya and Akatsuki.
Yeah.
Um, I think uh, there's a whole gamut of reasons why Byakuya feels bad that I could go into. And Akatsuki kind of plays out in a similar way, um, except Akatsuki's set play. Akatsuki doesn't have the set play upsides that Byakuya has, but his lockdown game is a lot stronger in the corner,
Yeah.
especially into Carmine. He has a lot. The Carmine has very few ways of getting out of some of Akatsuki's spacing traps and fireball traps. So it feels like the way neutral works out, if you're playing in such a way that you're dictating the pace and dumping health into controlling space and the tempo, you're not really gaining an advantage against these characters. They're just dash blocking you into the corner or using cycle to gain a meter advantage in
Yep.
neutral while dash blocking at you, and all you can do is hope they mess up.
Yeah, they're really leveraging your loss of health against you.
Yeah,
And so,
exactly.
they both of them, I think, because of how their meter ender situations go, end up stripping off a lot of health at any given time too, especially if the
Hmm.
routing is correct. So
And their
I can
corner
see that.
carry, man. Ugh. I just get
Yeah,
stuck in the corner as soon as I get hit. After Akatsuki 2-4 C enter, I'm in the corner immediately, you know?
yeah,
Byakuya, his Rekka series puts you in the corner so fast.
yeah.
Just,
The new Zoomer style of ender really, there are a couple different ways that he can take you there, as far as Akatsuki goes, and then basically like the style of combo that I think Tommy and Masoma ended up using with the, I'm just going to call it yeet into jump C, where it wall slams you. I
Yeah.
always feel bad getting hit by that, and I'm like, man, I'm getting put all the way in the corner. This sucks.
Yeah, and I think those two matchups are the ones I feel most uncomfortable in terms of if I'm gonna win the matchup or not. But I think when I play those matchups, I really enjoy playing into those characters because it allows a lot of room for me as a player to outplay my opponent. Um, and sometimes Carmine kind of plays himself. You know, he has a tendency to just you get one hit, put your opponent in the corner, and then if they guess wrong on a mix-up or two, they lose. But these two characters, you can't really run that play style, and you just have to nickel and dime them on interactions so much. And sometimes I find that exhilarating. You know, you feel so accomplished after a set against a strong Akatsuki or Byakuya player if you pull off the win because you have to thoroughly outplay those characters and those opponents, and
Hey,
it means a lot.
I totally get you because I became a person that has a lot of confidence fighting Batista. Batista Akatsuki historically a very bad matchup for him, one of his worst. Yuzu, sometimes I feel that way, not really. But the strides that I made in Hilda Akatsuki, where I think initially people thought it was up there as bad, maybe it's discussed close to even. I don't think that it's me necessarily that's shifted that needle, but being able to play in a way where I feel like I have a good shot, basically whenever I end up playing one, uh, there's a lot of pride to be gained in that. It's just like
Yeah.
I know your objective. You think you know my objective, and we're just gonna see who's better, and it's going to be me. You know, in your heart, that's what you're saying to yourself. So yeah, I definitely get that. Definitely
Yeah,
get
that's
that.
the only way to cope, you know. And it also lets you it feels really good to keep track of all those micro interactions and you're able to find advantages and find really small advantages that you can find really small situations that you bring up and you just get to put in the back of your mind how they react to those situations so you can take advantage of them later and there's just so many things to think about when the matchup is that disadvantage, you know.
Yeah, it's very incremental. Like I try to tell people, I'm gonna put a little business out there. Sorry, where Foxov really didn't like the Hilda matchup from the Landrakia side. And I asked him, I'm like, is this really a bad matchup, or are you forced to play your character in a different way than you are used to playing? Because I firmly believe, especially in modern fighting games by now, uh, if a matchup is difficult, it mostly challenges you to think about how to use your tools in a different way. And
Hmm.
I do certainly understand the urgency in wanting to switch off of a character, but I always feel like, for the most part, these characters have enough depth to them that even if you have to use a bad tool or a tool that you're not as comfortable using, you can make those strides and utilize those things to kind of flip expectations on their head. Like, and it feels really, really good when you make that call out on a powerful tool. It's like, yeah, I know you want to do that,
Yeah.
but you
Yeah.
didn't know that I had the answer to this, or you didn't know I was ready. And when you take the wind out of someone who is used to playing and doing certain options, it helps you reestablish your own offense in many ways too. Or at least that's what I
Absolutely.
think.
I agree. I agree.
Okay. So, speaking of players here, would you say that you have a rival or mini rivals? And if so, why do you consider them to be your rival?
I saw this question was really difficult because I think it's hard to distinguish between a rival and a contemporary. You know,
Oh, that's
like
a really good way of putting it.
yeah. There's a lot of players that I think are contemporaries that I play a lot, and we have really we have really close sets, and I I guess it's difficult to distinguish between the two. The only way you can, I guess, distinguish between the two is players you run into in brackets. So that's kind of the distinction I chose. But
Mhm.
that's the dilemma I was facing was there are a lot of players I could list here, but I haven't seen them in brackets. So I guess it doesn't. They aren't situations where the stakes are higher.
So, if I
Uh,
can push into that a little bit, since you have a long memory about opponents and opponent tactics, I'll modify that question. who are players that you think of potentially where getting a win over them feels a little sweeter than maybe uh, a win against not a normal, but like one of the many contemporaries you have.
Hmm.
One of the things that I talk about, so Miller 2B is someone that I highly respect. He's a rival of mine. We go back and forth. We call it the Holy War for the Ohio State Michigan sports kind of thing.
Yeah, I've
Um,
seen a lot of like grand finals or winners finals or losers finals of U2 in it.
yeah,
So
and I think of my contemporaries, people like Liam, people like Renala, I get up or I try to get up to play those people as well. But like Magnets, I think is a rival of mine. I'm on the back foot. He was beating the shit out of me in ST. But he's a player that like if I get a win on him or I get an edge up, like it feels a little better. Maybe I don't have any animosity toward him or any of the rivals that I have, but they're wins that mean a little more maybe. And I wonder if you have people like that.
okay, yeah, this list will be pretty long, but yeah, there definitely is a lot of players. Like I want to distinguish the true. I think my true rival throughout this version was Silent,
Yeah, makes
because
sense.
he was the strongest player in this version in my region that I worked really hard to try and reach his level. And it's not only that, his character was such a roadblock for me. As a player, I used to love playing. Oh, like I used to love committing and like pressing my opponents and playing more aggressively in neutral. But playing him made me look back and realize there's a lot of advantages to gain by playing more conservatively.
Oh yeah.
So he was definitely one of the players that made me rethink how to play my character, and learning that matchup, that player matchup, and that the character matchup was a huge step in my journey. And we go back and forth in sets and brackets. So I would say he's my rival in this version. But yeah, like the contemporaries that I really enjoy playing against would be like Knots or
Oh yeah.
um, Defiance. My most recent one would be Smile Pants.
Really? Smiles, huh?
Yeah, Smile Pants. We met in person at Combo Breaker this year, and we just hit it off really well. And now we play in net play all the time. And I
Nice.
test out subs against him, and we play a lot of long sets. And the player matchup has gone to the point where it's almost unbearable. Um, and to keep going, some players from my region would be like Aura Dude and Grey Faden and Salty Goku. Um, those three players definitely make me not want to drive to Dallas for that local.
Very challenging. All of them
It's too
very
hard.
talented. All
Yeah,
of them
they're too
very
good.
talented.
I don't. I think I've only won that local once, and it's never been on Karma.
I thought
um,
you got salty once on Carmine. I'm pretty sure, at least
that
once. I remember
that
watching
was in
it.
a yeah, that was in a larger event. It was at a
Oh,
set count.
that's right. Set count 2-1, right?
Yeah, yeah, at the beginning of this year in January. But yeah, he was beating my ass, so I really needed to sit up for that bracket. And he was playing really well that day.
Yeah, he
Um,
was. I was really surprised. I thought he was going to take it.
yeah,
But obviously, congratulations to you. You did really well.
yeah. I guess I could go by region too. So Prem and Mario and Captain Sugar was also one of my. Actually, I haven't played Mario that much. I'm not sure if I can list him. Our connection on that play isn't very good, so I wouldn't. I could. I respect his strength. He's a very very strong player, but I haven't been able to play him that much. But Captain Sugar was a player I played a ton
Oh
last year when
yeah.
he lived in North America. We trained a lot together around the
SoCal,
time.
I think, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
he used to live in SoCal. Yeah. A player that kind of has disappeared, but I assume they will come back. 3K, yeah, they play of
Oh,
2000.
3K. Big shout outs to
Yeah,
3K.
love shoving me in a locker with Byakuya. And I will I learned I improved at Carmine a lot over the course of 3K being in school, and I haven't been able to play them that much as I've improved. So I'm looking forward to hopefully they get more time on their hands to play net play.
Yeah,
And
hopefully in the next version.
yeah, and then like in PNW, Psychotic and Aria, and I recently lost the Klim at Pinnacle, so you're
That one feels a little different. I think Clem Klim maybe has a reputation because, to put it a little bluntly, his combos aren't very good. Uh, but his tactics are so good, and it feels like
Yeah,
you'll you'll run into him and he's like more relaxed, he's not as focused, and that feeling of playing Klim is different than when Klim is locked in. It's like, when Klim doesn't feel like he's locked in, he's not simply just a strong player, but he feels like a strong player. And then when he's locked in, there's a totally different feeling.
yeah.
As he's good, man.
Clem is very, very good. An easy player to underestimate because he plays this version only at brackets. You don't get to net play them that much, so the word of mouth of how good he is has kind of fallen off. But I think he's very, very strong. And Rurik and CG from that region as well.
Yep.
I've not played Rurik a lot, and I get to play Rurik at tournaments I travel to, so that's a player I respect a lot. I hate playing all the Yuzus, including Carp and
Yeah,
Shock Demon.
Carp is now West Coast for now. Chalk Demon. Chalk Demon was my demon. I mean, people might have
Yeah.
saw me get obliterated by him at a crossover arc 2 years ago.
There's no shame, no shame.
Yeah, he kind of joked that I ended up retiring him at Climax, but I don't like that. Uh, I hope that we will see more of him in the next version. He's a player I very deeply respect.
Yeah, absolutely. And then in Southeast, there are a few people I actually like. I really developed my gameplay against earlier in Clear when I played them a lot. They were around my skill level as we improved together, so I'd like to give a shout out to them. So like Rockhawk and Just
Shout outs
Evan,
to
the two
Rocco.
Byakuya players. Um, and there's a few more Georgia players from there too, like Kokorin and Gerard and all of them, where we had pretty good connections, and I got to play them a lot. So I was able to develop my play style against them. Um, and yeah, I don't want to keep prattling on this. This will take too long to keep. I'll just list every player I love playing against
Yeah,
that
right.
yeah. But yeah, just to let you know, everybody that's been around for a while that I net play, I always sit up for. I really look forward to playing everybody I play against and
Yeah,
all those wins.
everybody presents an interesting challenge in their own ways with their own strengths
Yeah.
to kind of account for. We might have maybe covered question 7. This is who you have your eye on. You've shouted out many players from many regions, but somehow managed to avoid the Midwest, I guess. But we'll
Midwest and East Coast, no, no.
yeah, we'll dig in a little bit and kind of alter that question. Maybe players that like Just Evan was shouted out. I don't know if many players are familiar with Just Evan uh, and their play. Rockhawk maybe to the same extent, but who are maybe some contemporaries that you would like to shout out that you maybe expect continued growth out of in the next version?
Hmm. Um, I'd like to recognize three of my local players, so three players from Houston,
Hmm.
uh, Fern, Hubstyle, and Espios. I think they all have a lot of potential to really improve throughout this next version, and I look forward to seeing them kick some ass. Uh, they aren't necessarily my contemporaries because they all started after me, but to look at players that currently are playing that will I think be even stronger in the next version. I think Twang.
Shout out to Twang, Big Twang.
Yeah. I remember it's kind of a sidebar, but at Combo Breaker this year, after the bracket ended, we were hanging out. I was waiting. We were hanging out at Combo Breaker at the hotel at 11, 12 p.m. There was like a little after party at the hotel,
Yep.
and Twang was feeling down on his character choice. And I was telling him, begging and pleading him to drop Akatsuki, so I'd have to.
Worry about it a
In
little less.
exactly. But part of it was me. Part of it was me like putting on a face, like saying, "Hey, like you should drop this character. He's not very good." But in the back of my mind, I knew it was just I don't want to keep seeing good Akatsuki players.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
I know that weekend, maybe around the same time, because there was like a gathering, where the entrance of the hotel was. At that time, I was doing some. This is another aside, I guess. I was doing some labbing, thinking of some meter theory. Uh, I started doing 660 C fireball air throw um, on single bounce combos. Esoterica that I don't need to go into, but I was talking to Defiant and Twang about meter theory, and a couple little like game within the game type things. And I think I think that ended up helping Twang a little bit too. It, I think playing Akka or maybe characters that are on the weaker end considered by many peers, it's easy to get sucked into kind of the flaws, but in some respects, I think he maybe hit a point where he's just like, okay, well, I could be applying my tactics better. I could be thinking more openly about things, and I think maybe he hit that direction too. I feel like
Yeah,
he's really just on an upward trajectory. Mocha, Salty are all like Akkas that I have my eye on. I'm excited to see what they're gonna do. But let me stop taking away from your shine here. You
I
mentioned
was gonna
Twang.
say Mocha next, actually. Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the Midwest representative. Let's go.
Yeah. And then two other players I think that were strong in this version that'll be even stronger in the next version. I wanted to shout out would be I think Noctis and
Yeah,
Shaylee.
he's on his way up. And Shaylee has been doing work recently.
Yeah, Shaylee's been grinding really hard recently. This is the game he enjoys the most to play. And he's looking at a bit of a character crisis in the next version. I'm not sure if he likes how Seth's looking, but um, from what he played in the beta, but he's a very strong player with I mean he definitely will make some waves in the next version, even more than he did in this version, where he was already a tough out at any bracket and was placing pretty well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, moving off of that question and on to the next one, do you have any player inspirations and or players that you modeled your play after from a competitive standpoint? And then from the community standpoint, do you have any community members that you look up to?
For the player question, looking at just Carmine players, I'd say Spinach was definitely my inspiration on my rule book, my guides on how to play the character came from him. Just watching him play and all the VODs that he has out, and he's definitely a player that not only exemplifies the strengths of the character and his gameplay, but how he thinks about the game and his decision making. People like to joke about the Spinach die and how he just dice rolls reversals and stuff, and guesses all the time. But
Yeah. Let me
there's
dig
just so
into that
much.
real quick. For those who
Yeah,
don't know, he actually has a physical die that has printed options of various things that he does roll in bracket and in
yeah.
casuals. This is like a deep cut for people who don't really know. Spinach does have that. Please
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah. So they're definitely like, but there's just so much more to his thought process and how he approaches the game. And he's a lab monster too. Like underestimated, labs the game a ton and knows a lot of micro interactions and combo optimizations. And on the flip side, of course, there's the JP Carmine players like Notes and Adder and Barudamu that I would watch and gather tech and inspiration from, as well as South American Carmine players like Falky and Jinta.
Shout
Um,
out to Dinta. He put out that video. That was amazing.
yeah, he made a dissertation. Like that would get him a master's degree in graphic design
No,
with the
for
amount of
real.
work he put into that.
I was blown away by that. That's one of my favorite uni videos, I think, period now.
Absolutely. And my combos suck, so I need to watch that video more.
It's gonna be
Uh,
scary because you're already amazing. If you start putting in some of that stuff, oh boy.
I used to be known. Spinach used to bust my balls and call me the Carmine player with shitty combos, but he said I've come a long way. Um, and
It's a lot of praise
outside,
from him.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I got that praise recently, so it took years. And outside of Carmine players, a player, I'd say two players I really enjoy watching and take inspiration from how they play and try and emulate would be Big Black. Um, though the play style theories that I've developed on how to play the character Carbine more patiently have kind of come from how many times I've lost to him. you know?
It makes
So
sense. He makes you
yeah.
really, really examine how you want to play. I think many more people. How do I want to phrase this? Uh, People might not admit this, but I think Big Black's ascension has really changed the way that North America thinks about running pressure and really like playing to game states in North America.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy to it's really interesting to think that a player's play style can be influential. Kind of like how music and film they're touchstone pieces of art that are inspirational that people take influence from. Like, I mean, Big Black isn't the Beatles or anything, but he's like a more modern example. I guess he's like what Coldplay would be to a modern rock band, I guess, or some other metaphor you can think of. He's more of a newer age style, like play style that was so difficult of a mountain to climb. I had you just have to rethink how you approach the game to defeat a player like that, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And another player, Defiant.
Yep.
I really like watching them play, and uh, one of the inspirations for me to pick up Hyde was how patiently they play the character and how they're able to prune the game state to such a point that it makes your opponent desperate.
Yeah.
And I think it's really it's kind of sadistically it feels good to play that kind of dominant like Hyde play style where you remove all your opponent's options and constantly run pressure in such a way that it counters what their next move would be. And I didn't really realize Hyde could be played like that, and until I played him for the first time, and I realized this character is pretty sick. I used to think Hyde was pretty lame, but one of the inspirations for me picking up the character was watching them play and playing against them.
Yeah. I know he mentioned a Hyde that cannot be named, who is currently over in
Mm-hmm.
Japan right now. Uh,
Oh,
to spoil it. Oh, sorry, no, he's talking about someone else, but I think Isaac maybe also informed a lot of how Modern Hyde gets played. Um,
oh yeah, he's definitely talking about somebody
yeah,
else.
he's talking about another
Yeah.
person, but I do also attribute maybe some of the way he thinks about the game to Isaac as well.
Yeah.
Even if it's not like a direct kind of lineage, maybe toward where like Garm is maybe more akin to Isaac than maybe Defiant is. Um, but like players like that, he who may not be named, also served as an inspiration for me. Like I think pretty openly that that person is probably the best Akatsuki in the country.
Hmm.
Um, Even with respect to Squish and myself and Salty or whoever, the way that they think about the game and have approached the game has influenced me for better or for worse as well. So yeah,
Yeah, Isaac is a player that I really I've come to appreciate their play style and how they play the game more and more the more I play the game. Um,
yeah, it grows
yeah,
on you because you hated it first, and then you start to
yeah,
realize the logic behind it. It's like very, very brutal logic in some respect. You know,
yeah. You hate getting shit on by him, but then you realize, oh, this is just a strong play style that Hyde can be played as.
yep,
I didn't really realize that until I improved at the game and also picked up Hyde myself. I realized a lot of these situations where he seems like he's just rolling his face on his pad and not even like giving a shit about his opponent is there's way more game theory behind it, I guess.
yeah. It's funny to look at the parallel, and we'll get back to the end of the question. Sorry, I'm going in the weeds with you here. Venice, also
Oh
very much
yeah, yeah,
similar.
yeah.
Venice, I think, is a lot more instinctual maybe than even Isaac is, but like I'm gonna borrow a term from basketball, like the shot selection from Venice is like
Yeah.
it's so insane when you start to really like look at it, like when you really understand what he's doing. It's like I've described Venice as like, the when you've lost a set and you tell yourself, man, if only I would have did this, or if only I would have did that. Like Venice is the living embodiment of believing in that and having the execution behind it as well. His execution is fantastic. So I'm always kind of inspired by those players. They've like altered my thinking about that as well. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but we'll go into the community side. Who are maybe some community members that you look up to?
Oh, more like definitely my the local TOs, like the TOs in Texas. I'd like to give a shout out here and give my flowers. There are some TOs here in Houston that put in a lot of work to run consistent events, not only for Under Night but for other games. That I really appreciate. I think their tags are 2K and Zed Chama and Pika, and yeah, they run a lot of events in Houston. Like there's always at least a couple a month. And despite their ravenous work schedules out in Cazador, despite their difficult work schedules, they put stuff together for people to consistently go out, and that's why there's so many. That's why there's even those three players I mentioned for my local scene. They have so many opportunities to grow and improve at those events. And then TOs throughout Texas in general. So the Quick Draw Brawl squad, and the Austin Air Assault team.
Yeah,
Just so many and the team that runs River City Rushdown in San Antonio, which I went to last month and had a ton of fun at. Just so many TOs that put their blood, sweat, and tears into running events for 10, 15 people, and it really means the world to me.
absolutely. Shout outs to our TOs. Lovely people. Okay, so we're going to transition kind of toward the end of our interview here. The next question on the docket. So we're at the end of this version, Uniclear. Do you have any thoughts about this version as we prepare for the next version? Any reflections, hot takes, or anything like that?
I think Defiant mentioned in their interview, in this specific question, I think Elnum's really good. Elnum's a strong character, and their reputation in this version, I think, is too low. I've had the discussion before. I think in a first two setting, that character can struggle. I think they're a bit too. Uh, they don't have ways to. I don't know. They don't have like Waldstein's a good example of a character that feels way better in a first to two to play than to play as the player. So if you're playing Walds, I'd rather play Walds than Eltnum in a first to two as the player.
I could see that, yeah.
Yeah, um, and I think that's just due to the volatility of Walds, where you can take advantage of a lot of. You just create so many volatile situations that are difficult to cover all at once, and Eltnum isn't really good at that, but
Yeah.
she's really good at grinding down the game state and playing from defense, and it's just so frustrating to play that character in a long set.
Yeah,
Um,
I feel the same way. And
yeah.
I think they, at least from what we've seen from the beta, they've increase the sort of checks that you have to deal with in a short set. So Eltnum has historically been like a very popular character in North America, even more so than I think in Japan in many respects. So I'm not looking forward to the return of many Eltnums, but
Mhm.
hopefully they get scared off. If you think they're bad, stop playing them. I don't want to see you. Kind of like you with Twang, like yeah, she's bad. Don't touch her. Just
Yeah.
move on to a different character. Maybe play Kuan or something. Like,
I was telling Twang to pick Seth, like, yeah, I'd rather see Seth than Akatsuki,
oh, for sure, from the
Yeah,
Carmine
yeah.
perspective, right?
Yeah, and that's another character I feel like gets a bit of a bad rap. Not Seth, Akatsuki. I think
Yeah,
Akatsuki's quite strong. If you're willing to put in the effort in that character, and again, I think that's another character that is very stressful and difficult to successfully win in those like high pressure first to twos, where there just isn't a lot of grounds. There isn't like a lot of margin for error.
yep,
Meanwhile, you have characters like Byakuya or Hilda that have a much larger margin for error, of course. But in the longer sets or against an opponent where the layers are in their favor and those interactions kind of go their way, like Eltnum and Akatsuki just feel so awful to play into,
yeah. I
no matter who I'm playing.
I feel that one of the things I've tried to tell for Akatsuki's once they've hit that, I can move my character, I can do Tatsu and IW, I can do this and that, is you're not losing because your character is too weak, and I've run into many frustrating moments. I can't beat Foxov. Like right now, Like whatever mental compulsion is going on, like he has my number and he's had it for a long time.
Hmm.
But when I always sit back and review, it's not I don't have this tool, I don't have that tool. It's I could be doing this a little better. I could be doing this more decisively. Like I think I can create some uncertainty here that I didn't key on before. Um, I don't think my hot take for Uniclear actually, even though I think Eltnum and maybe Gordo are in the weaker end, um, there is no character in this game that is too weak for you to win with. That's like my firm hot take 4 interviews in. I don't think I've shared this, but if you're losing, you could be playing better, and
Hmm.
I think that's like my hard line with Uniclear. Sorry, but
I
this
think
is
that
this is your spot. My bad. I'm like taking over that there.
no, you're right. You're right. This game's really well balanced, except the top two, of course.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess that's one more thing I can mention. I think Lene is maybe it's just the Carmine player in me, but I think that character is incredibly strong, rivaling the characters that people traditionally think are like right outside the top two. I think Lene is somewhere up there. I think she's just so stable.
Yeah, I
Um,
I think she
and
has every tool that she needs. There's some
yeah,
like really unfortunate matchups, like maybe Seth for her, Yuzu to some extent, but I think she has the tools to basically cover everything.
yeah, and playing into that character just it spikes all my blood pressure sometimes, because I
Yeah, I
know
know it.
things can just go wrong so fast.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she falls out of a lot of Akatsuki things. She goes under assault. Like it,
yeah,
there's some targeted things that make it really difficult for me playing in that matchup, and it's a refrain that I've heard from a couple different character players. So I
yeah.
think she's well equipped. But yeah, kind of going into our second to last question here, or really our last question. Um, what are you looking forward to the most in Under Night 2?
I really in the beta, I really enjoyed the playing against the new characters. And Uni has a very small roster, with only like 20 characters. So I'm looking forward to all the new characters being introduced. It'll really shake things up, and you know, one of the cool things about games with larger rosters is people develop a really deep bench of characters they have for counter picks, and the currently in Uni, there aren't a lot of people that play into those counter picks. There aren't a lot of people with like deep pockets that can like counter pick at will. And I look forward to that kind of meta developing, because I think that's really sick. I think that's really cool. Metagaming. It's fun to watch people switch on to subs, counter pick people. I think that's really fun.
You know,
Um,
it's kind of interesting with that. If I may push back a little bit with that, I think we've started to see the budding of that at our higher level. I mean, BB will pick Byakuya, but we know he has a bit of a bench. Like he's played
yeah,
Carmine before. Landrakia is essentially his sub. Um, Gosu, who is refrained from playing in clear, basically has a wide
hmm,
bench. Psychotic has Wald and Aurier. Um, Rurik tends to only play Yuzu, but he's got a couple different subs.
yeah,
Defiant plays most of the cast. Knots plays a good amount of the cast. Mario has at least like a 4 deep character roster, I think, as well. Um, I think we're going to see more of that, especially with maybe offense trending higher, especially early in the next version, because I think everything's going to be up in the air. It's going to be the rat race of like who can get off and get a win here or there first. I think we'll see a lot of that early on.
yeah. I do think everyone there are a lot of players with deep benches, but I think with more characters it'll like you said, it'll make things even more exciting in the next version. A lot of people have had a lot of time to develop subs over the course of this version, because the player population's been not that high, so there's a lot of opportunities to develop those kind of subs against the same higher level players. And I look forward to the newer playstyles of those new characters to shake things up and make things more interesting.
Abs-
And another thing I'm looking forward to is just the comeback of a lot of older players.
Yeah.
I really like watching SD footage because the game, like everyone's watching people play in that version and this version, things are just so much different, and I look forward to seeing the meshing of the old styles and the new styles, and seeing how those older players adapt to how the newer players play, and that's just gonna be really interesting to watch.
Yeah, we've seen a little bit of the meeting of the styles. I don't know if you had the opportunity to watch, you know, pulling back a character or a player that you kind of had your eye on with Twang. Twang got to play Infinity. They're both New Jersey essentially,
Oh,
but
cool.
at one of Imp's offline thing during the beta, they got to play, and when I talked to Twang, he was just like, this dude Infinity's defense is so crazy. And again, my contemporaries know this. We came up when Infinity was threatening to win tournaments and won tournaments. With his return and maybe the larger return of people like brkrdave, and things like that. Redblade obviously is coming back in the next version. Um, I'm so interested to see the boomers and zoomers, as we like to call them, really face off in the next game. It's gonna
Yeah, I'm
be
looking
really
forward to
fun.
it so much too. Yeah.
It's gonna be very fun. So we're basically at the end of our interview. This next question, quote unquote, of sorts, is to give us some places maybe that you put some content out. I don't think that you're on Twitter, but maybe you have a YouTube or something. I don't know if you're planning to stream or put some of the sets that you play on YouTube, but if you have a chance to give us some places to follow you at, please.
I don't really post on social media that often, but I'm pretty easy to find on Discord. Um, if you ever want to, if you ever want to find me or talk to me about something, just ping me on the Uni channel and Uni server, and you'll find me there. I upload sets on my personal YouTube channel whenever I play them, uh, and I mean it has my government name on it, so I don't want to say it here.
Understandable,
Yeah,
understandable.
yeah,
So,
but I guess whenever I upload sets, I'll link them on the replay theater, replay channel,
yep,
the
shout
website
outs to
thing,
that.
and yeah, and
Yep,
you can find them there.
yep. Shout outs to that, and of course, for people who are not as familiar with our scene, we don't really split up. I mean, we have a bunch of different discords. There's like the Imp Discord, the WAS Discord, and maybe some regional discords, but basically everybody goes to the main Uni hub. If you're a new player, or if you've been someone who's been around for a long time, if you want to learn some maybe high level opinions, you can go into character channels. We don't have character discords or anything like that. So um, please come to the Uni Discord if you're interested in Under Night. You'll see people like me and people like Pesto, and hopefully you enjoy yourself. Finally, we've done a couple shout outs through the course of this interview, but if you can leave us with some shout outs to some people here as we come to a close.
Uh, yeah, I already did a shout out of like a laundry list of people, but I guess I'd like to shout out the Lost community. I net played there a lot when I was transitioning to Carmine, and it helped me develop a play style and improve on a lot of stuff. So thank you, Impurist Club, and all the moderator team you have there. And uh, I already shouted out my local TOs and stuff, so that's kind of who I wanted to shout out. Um, yeah, that's about it.
All right, that's perfect. Thank you again for taking the time. I know I've taken a little bit over an hour of your time here. You're a bit of a busy guy, but I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today, and to the audience who will be listening to your interview here soon.
Thank you for having me, Ju. I appreciate it. This series is pretty sick, and I'm looking forward to listening to the rest of the episodes.
Absolutely. Thank you.